As we look into the realm of infinity, this can just remind you how high silver can really go. Silver can go as high as the dollar can go low. With that being said, good morning, YouTubers. T-Square here with T-Square Talk. I hope y'all are having a great day. Got a great video planned out for you guys today. Today, I want to talk a little bit about a recent comment that I got, basically asking me what I think about going all in on silver, except for their house. And I kind of wanted to talk about that because I know right off there is a ton of people that are excited about where the price of precious metals are going. How high can they go? Is it worth putting everything you have into it? And I'm going to talk about this today. And some people may like my answer. Some people may not like my answer. However, I want people to understand that this is not a financial channel. I'm telling you guys my thoughts on stuff, just my personal opinion, and it's not meant to be financial advice, and nor should it be considered as such. And like I said, some people might like this, some people won't like this, but we're going to dig in. I hope everybody's having a great day. If you enjoyed today's video, please take a quick minute, hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and hit that thumbs up button. And with that being said, let's get started. So my thoughts on should someone go all in on silver. Well, first, let's just take a look at the silver price real quick. So we got the silver price right now trading at $40.51. Now, silver has been on a really good tear lately. It's been moving up higher. When you look at like a 5-day outlook, we're pretty well flat over the last 5 days. But when you look at a 1-month outlook, we're up considerably. When you look at a 3-month, we're up considerably. 6 months, considerably higher. Year to date, considerably higher. Over the last year, a lot higher. Literally, we're seeing the price slowly rocket up. And a lot of people are excited about that because they think that, hey, I want to put everything I own in it, hit the grand slam. Now, right off the bat, I got to say, I am pretty heavy into gold and silver. However, I also understand that they can kick this can down the road as long as they can, essentially. They will. A lot of people think that, oh, but the price manipulation has to come to an end. You're absolutely right. The price manipulation has to come to an end eventually. However, we don't know when that will be. I've been stacking for not as long as some of you, but a lot longer than some of you, I guess you can say, kind of in the middle there. I've been stacking now for almost 10 years. And it has been a slow road, essentially, a slow road. There's been a lot of times where I felt like the price should be exploding, and, all of a sudden it just gets beat down in one day. And it doesn't always add up. A lot of us know what that is. It's silver short position. It's the naked shorts, where people are basically shorting silver that they don't even have or don't even have essentially IOUs for. This can go on for a while. Eventually, though, what happens when you manipulate anything, it does bite back eventually with force, and it's usually out of someone's control. I've used the analogy before. You can hold a beach ball under the water. You go swim under the pool, into the pool, and you hold that beach ball down. You can't hold that beach ball down forever. Eventually, the person lets go of it. They either let go of it by choice, it slips out of their hand. The further deeper you go in the pool, the harder it gets. The deeper you push that, you try to go on the deep end of a swimming pool and you try to push that beach ball all the way down to the floor of the pool. The force behind that gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's kind of what's happening, I believe, with silver right now. They've manipulated it so low, and it may not feel low because we're seeing it slowly rise. But it's been manipulated for so low for so long, it's caused a huge drain on the silver supply. We're seeing the silver stockpiles just keep getting smaller and smaller. And as more and more people move, I'll say, away from the dollar, then naturally they move into other assets. And silver and gold definitely has been sucking up a lot of those assets. We know the money printing in this country, here in the United States, and really in almost every country in the world, has been picking up. The more money they print, that money has to go somewhere. There's always this belief that, oh, silver will go back down to 20. I've heard multiple people say it on the channel. I've even heard people say it in real life. You know, here's the thing. If silver went back to 20, how many people would buy up as much as they could? How many people would take a loan against their house and buy it up? You know, I read a comment today or yesterday, and it was basically about a loaf of bread being a nickel at one time. You know, if a loaf of bread was still a nickel, somebody would go and buy up all the bread. It would just happen. You know, you think about it. And the bread is a resource that essentially, yeah, people need it. But on the flip side, it's a resource that you can't really keep forever. With silver, you can just buy it and hold it. There's a lot of money out there chasing small amounts of resources, essentially. And that's why we're seeing the prices of gold and silver slowly climb up higher and higher. We know the manipulation is still there because we see the short positions. That's public knowledge, how much the silver is shorted. May not know who shorts it, but we're going to talk a little bit about that in today's video too. Before I jump over there and talk a little bit about that, I want to ask again that you hit that thumbs up button and you make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you're watching this. I know at first when I started talking on the video, some people might have already been frowning. But as I get more into it, I think people are going to really appreciate it, and then usually they forget to hit that thumbs up or that subscribe button. Let's take a quick look before we get back into silver and just take a look at gold, what gold's doing right now. Gold right now, again, $3,581. When you look at it on a 5-day chart, it's considerably up. When you look at it on a 1-month chart, it's a whole lot higher up. When you look at it on 3 months, again, up. 6 months, up. Year to date, a lot up. Year out, even 5 years out. But what I want people to understand, even though both gold and silver are going up higher and higher, you have to understand there's a lot of manipulation out there that's trying to fight it. And some people say manipulation, silver manipulation is BS. I've heard a lot of people come on the channel say there's no such thing as silver manipulation. If you go on Google and you just type in silver market manipulation, you will find hundreds of articles talking about it. Spoofing, manipulation, naked shorts. These are all terms that happen a lot in the silver. And sometimes they might manipulate it up for a small, short time just to make a profit. Sometimes they manipulate it down to keep the price low. That way they don't lose out on their short positions, their huge short positions. Now, I got to say, JP Morgan is one of, in my opinion, the largest silver manipulators. There could be bigger ones out there. I just pick on them because they have had huge amounts of fines pushed against them. They've had some of their employees actually do time for manipulation, and they've had a lot of cases where they just ended up saying, hey, we'll pay the fine, but we won't plead guilty. And it's a win in a way. It's a win because the government don't have to spend money pressing charges on these people, whoever is going against them. Maybe it's even an individual. There was actually an individual that had an extremely large gold position, and he was having it stored at a company. And I can't remember if it was JP Morgan or another one, but needless to say, when he went and actually wanted his gold, they didn't have it on hand. They basically were charging him fees for something they didn't even hold. They were charging him storage fees. Now, people use storage accounts for security. Hey, I can put my gold, my silver in this storage facility, and it's safe. And whenever I want it, I can essentially go get it. But there's a fee with that associated. Well, essentially, the company was charging the fee, but they didn't actually have it on there. And most people that are stackers don't have the intent necessarily of, if you're putting it into a storage facility, a vaulting company, you're probably not going to go and take physical, right off the bat. It's usually something that sits there for long periods of time. And, needless to say, he ended up winning in court. I think if I remember right, the company pled Basically, they didn't want to plead guilty, but they ended up making it right with a fine. They paid a fee. They paid the defendant or the prosecutor, and they paid a big fee. Here, $920 million. Now, that's a huge amount. I mean, you think about that. That's almost $1 billion. But what people have to understand is they have I won't say infinite amounts of money, but they have a lot of money at their disposal. In fact, if we were to take a quick look, how much money does JP Morgan actually have? As of the second quarter of 2025, JP Morgan Chase had $4.55 trillion in total assets, which represents its overall financial resources. The amount of money it has at its disposal, however, is better understood by looking at specific liquidity matrix, which show cash, rapidly available funds that it maintains. When I scrolled down here, it said high quality liquid assets. So, I mean, how quick could they drum up a lot of cash? $922 billion. So we're getting up to almost $1 trillion. And we talk a lot about different assets on here. However, the silver market based on market cap, that means how much money it's overall worth, is $2.3 trillion. That means essentially someone could buy up the asset or a pretty well large stake of it for $2.317 trillion. So, I mean, when you understand that number, that's a huge amount of money. But big companies like JP Morgan, I'm not going to say they can buy up the market, but I'm convinced they already have an extremely large position in silver. They also have a large position in short silver. And the reason they hold some of both, if you hold physical silver, in my opinion, you understand that you have the wealth. You have the money. Doesn't matter what happens. If you hold the ounces and the price takes off, you will see a lot of places essentially not being able to deliver. And when deliveries can't be made, you will start seeing the price of silver really rocket up. So if they have a large amount of physical, then they're pretty well going to be okay. Now, a big question I've had before too is, well, why, if they hold it, would they short it? Because by shorting it, you keep the price down. A company like this can continue to buy silver while at the same time they're shorting it. Now, it might seem like it's a double negative, but at some point, those short positions, I believe, will be sold off to a company. And they'll get sold off to a company, and that company will eventually go bankrupt right after purchasing them. And it's a way to kind of get rid of bad assets off of your books. And a company that goes bankrupt, well, hey, okay, they don't deliver, but they're bankrupt. So there's nothing that can happen to the company. We've seen this happen a lot in the offshore oil drilling, where companies will buy rigs. Maybe you have a great producing rig, and as the rig goes downhill and all the easy fruit have been picked, as you might say, they've pumped as much oil out of it as they could. Yes, they can keep it going, but it needs a ton of maintenance. And what you'll see smaller companies come in and buy these rigs. Now, why do they want a rig that's production has dropped and a lot of maintenance? Because they will run it in a way that they are trying to pick every penny out of it. Once they have picked it clean, then essentially they just kind of offload it. They just sell it off to another company, and then that company might use it for a short time and then just bankrupt it away. And if that rig offshore was to start a huge leak or something, the well may not be properly capped, the storm comes in, wrecks it, and all of a sudden there's oil spewing over there. Well, the original company definitely ain't to blame. The secondary company, they've already got rid of it when they pawn it off on someone else, and ultimately they leave another company holding the bag. And it's a company that doesn't have a low lot. So it's not like they can be sued. They might go bankrupt, but at the end of the day, the company goes bankrupt. That's it. The whole point for, I'll say, the elites of LLCs and companies is to essentially not put themselves. They may have a golden parachute, but they might lose the company. I've actually seen this happen in real estate where people will set up LLCs. They'll put all their property in different LLC names, and if something goes wrong and it's terrible, well, they're not going to get cleaned out. And so the short position, I believe, is going to come back at some point to where it's going to be one huge failure to deliver. And I'm convinced JP Morgan is not going to be holding that once it gets there. They will sell it off to another company, and they will remain, and then they will have all the physical silver. But in the meantime, they can continue to pump up short positions and beat the price down, continue to buy it, and then keep shorting it. And it's almost like an endless cycle. And they can play this game for a very, very long time. And once you understand that you may not want to put everything into it. Now, here's the thing. Top financial advisors are going to tell you it's wise to put 5 or 10% into precious metals. And the other 90%, you want to put them in stocks, stuff like that. That's solid. And if the stock market did collapse and the economy got really bad, the stock market collapsed, the theory is that 10% will cover that 90%. How do we know that? Well, if you look in 2008, if you look in, 2011, we had a big run up. And, we had the huge banking crisis. We had a lot of money flood into the system with the bank bailouts. The economy wasn't doing good. But gold and silver skyrocketed. In fact, gold went to an all-time high at the time was $2,000. Silver went from roughly $5 to $50. It made 10 times. And so, if you had 10% of your money in silver, let's say, and you had 90% in the stock market, well, the stock market came down severely. But what happened to silver? Silver went up 10x. Now, that's kind of the strategy there. Now, I'll be honest. Personally, I go over 10%, and I know a lot of you know that. In fact, the majority of you watching this right now are laughing at 10% because 10% is an extremely low number. When you think about it, if someone was to do 20% with that same mentality that I just told you, if someone was to do 20% of their net worth into silver, 80% in the stocks, when the stock market collapses, and eventually I believe it will, well, that 20% is not just going to cover their 100% of their money. It's actually going to take their wealth to 200% or somewhere slightly under it. Why? Because if you do the math and you have $10,000 hypothetically in silver, $90,000 in the stock market collapses, $10,000 does a 10x, boom, you're back up to your 100 plus whatever the stocks are worth. Well, if you had $20,000 into silver and $80,000 in the stock market and the stock market collapses, if the same 10x move happens, it puts your silver investment up to $200K. So you are clearly way ahead of the game at that point. Now, what number you feel comfortable with, each person will have to make that themselves. People that say diversify evenly, like with 10%, and I shouldn't even say evenly, but they value it as the financial advisors will try to tell you evenly, 10% here, 90% there. But the people that do that are protecting their retirements. They're protecting their investments. They're playing it safe, almost like a person that plays blackjack and then buys insurance when the dealer has an ace. They're willing to forfeit half of their bet for the guarantee that they can't lose. And when people invest a very small amount in silver, essentially they're forfeiting a huge amount of profit for the safety net. However, I'm not looking for a safety net. I understand, yes, my silver could go down. It's not the end of the world. And if it goes down too low, well, that's okay. Somebody will inherit it if I don't make it, if I don't last that long to wait it out. But it's something that people have to understand, that this game that they're playing could go on. Now, here's the thing. Are we seeing signs of the game breaking down and about ready to explode? Absolutely. There's no denying that. However, when will it explode? What new tricks will they pull out of their hat that we haven't seen yet? We know right now there's huge short positions. We know that the contracts, the whole ETFs was a way, I believe, to be able to beat the price of silver down. Everything they do, I believe, is designed to take your wealth. You right now give up your wealth, your time, your labor, and you take that in fiat dollars, fiat currency. And most people will hold the fiat currency. And then they will live paycheck to paycheck as we see a steady, this makes me laugh, roughly 3% inflation. And I say it makes me laugh because I'm not convinced that that's the inflation numbers, despite what anybody will tell me. However, as that happens, they'll tell you, oh, 3% is good because your assets are going up in value. Well, you may not have assets. If you're just living paycheck to paycheck, you're just trying to struggle to get by. And the system is designed essentially to take your time and your labor and your money and everything. And once you start breaking free from that system and start investing a little bit in gold or silver, I understand gold is extremely expensive for a lot of people. It's pretty well protected on the chart right now with almost $24.5 trillion, followed by Nvidia, which is $4 trillion, and then it just keeps getting smaller. I believe we will see silver surpass a lot of these companies like Amazon, Alphabet, maybe even Apple and Microsoft. Nvidia, who knows? You think about what silver is. You look at this price right now for a quick minute, $2.2 trillion. And that's at $41 silver. If silver goes to $82, that $2.2 trillion goes up to $4.4 trillion. And all of a sudden, it passed Nvidia and everything. And there it is at the top of the screen with gold and then silver. Now, some people even have a belief that silver will surpass gold, that silver is coming out of the ground now less than gold. I had someone leave me a comment yesterday. If you were ever to go to a gold mine, you would see that. And that they're pulling out tons of gold and they're not pulling out as much silver nowadays. Well, here's the thing. First of all, silver is a byproduct. So to go to a silver mine specifically, I'm sure they have them. I've watched videos where they were pulling out silver out of the ground, but a lot of silver comes from byproducts. And as the price goes up, there are a lot of weak players out there that will start recycling silver and selling it. There's a lot of people that will sell the silver that they've stacked. Right now, silver recycling is not huge. We don't spend a lot of time and money recycling silver. However, if things were to really skyrocket on the silver price, more people would find ways to recycle silver every little bit. Once you understand that, you understand, there's a lot against silver skyrocketing. I did a video the other day explaining, in my opinion, how $100 silver was a guarantee. I had one of my buddies today outright laugh. He's like, dude, you've been talking about that for like 8-9 years. I remember when we were working together out in West Texas, and we would sit here and discuss silver. And yeah, I'm not going to kind of crap on your ideas, but I didn't believe in it then, and I really don't believe in it now. But here's the thing. I said back then, we're talking $20. Now we're talking $40. He said, I still don't see it happening. Think how bad things would get. And we've done videos that things don't have to collapse and they don't have to get really bad in order to see silver price skyrocket. The average person doesn't have any silver. I talked to a younger kid the other night. He is heavily into Pokemon. Huge Pokemon collector. And I had a bunch. Some of y'all remember when we talked about the McDonald's Pokemon that was all the craze. And he wanted my Pokemons, my McDonald's Pokemons. So I met up with him and I talked with him a little bit. And we talked about silver even. We talked about Pokemon. We talked about different stuff. And I said, you realize right now, what do you think is making those Pokemons go up in value? He said, collectors. They want them. Everybody wants them. I said, okay, collectors. I said, what happens if all of a sudden you lost your job? would you still be collecting Pokemon? He said, I wouldn't be getting rid of mine. They're going to keep going up in value. I said, if all of a sudden it came down to your house payment or your Pokemon cards, what would you do? Well, obviously, he would get rid of his Pokemon cards. You're not going to lose your house. You're not going to lose your car over a collectible. But I said, at the same time, if everybody else is losing their jobs, you're not buying anymore. It's safe to say they're not going to be buying anymore. And then you see collectibles take a huge, devastating hit. What's causing the Pokemons to keep going up in price right now? For those of you that don't know, Pokemon, it's like little trading cards that have pictures of little, I don't want to say monsters, but little Pokemons, I guess you could say. Probably not a good definition of it, but needless to say, if all of a sudden the economy collapsed, a lot of people wouldn't be buying collectibles, but the elites will still be buying gold and silver. I always get asked, well, if the economy collapses, you won't be buying gold and silver. I said, you're probably right. I mean, I may not be buying extra gold and silver if the economy collapses. I'll just be trying to stay afloat. But do you think the rich elites will not be looking for a place to put their money? That's the thing people have to understand. Me and you are not in the same boat as the elites. The elites, when they can't invest in U.S. treasuries because they're not paying interest, or they can't invest in the stock market because they feel that it's not safe right now because it keeps slowly going lower and lower, and then they can't invest in Bitcoin because they realize all of a sudden that Bitcoin is a digital thin air asset, and as we get closer to supercomputers, eventually the blockchain on that will be hacked and changed. Now, I actually heard about some new technology that they're implementing in the new cryptos that makes it to where the supercomputers cannot hack the blockchain. However, stuff like Bitcoin, which is set and run, once it's running, it's moving around the internet, there's no way to go back, supposedly, and change the overall code because it's already out there. And there's no control person that controls it ultimately. Now, are there things in Bitcoin that we may not know? Of course there could be. I'm only going with what the mainstream is saying right now on that. And that's why I think it's a thin air asset. Now, even on a thin air asset, we could see it have a big jump. You make a bunch of money. You sell your position shortly after it comes down. And then you wait for another opportunity. I mean, speaking of Bitcoin real quick, I don't even think I read the Bitcoin price. Bitcoin right now is sitting at 111,000. It's kind of been a little bit rocky over the last month. As you can see, it started to come down. Now, I'm convinced as this hump right here, this 123,300 falls back past this 1 month range, then the high will be here. As time goes on, the high will be here. So if this can keep going down, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. I know some people are saying, oh, no, it's got a lot of room to run and this and that. And maybe it does. I'm not totally crapping on Bitcoin. I'm just saying, in my opinion, if things start breaking down, certain types of assets are not going to be popular. When you have people that are taking out huge loans against one Bitcoin to buy more Bitcoin, all that is compounding. And eventually, if the price did drop, how many of them people are going to have to give up their position? And then all of a sudden, that's going to cause it to drop even more. Now, are there people that are trying to essentially back their whole company to Bitcoin? You look at Michael Saylor. He's been a huge proponent of Bitcoin. And he's been buying and buying and buying more and more and more. And most of the money is not his money. It's other people's money. So, I mean, if he loses it, you have to understand. I mean, yeah, he won't sleep well at night, but is he going to care as long as he gets his golden parachute? We've seen this happen during the whole financial banking crisis, where high-end CEOs of some of these banks got huge bonuses, even though the company needed, trillions of dollars essentially from the United States. huge amounts of money, and I probably shouldn't say trillions because probably no one specific bank. I don't know how much they needed, but definitely billions, hundreds of billions. So, I don't know the exact who took how much, so I probably shouldn't even be talking too much about that. But, what's important to know is when a CEO needs a huge bailout from the government, from ultimately the taxpayer, and then gets a $1 million bonus at the end of the year, what is that saying? Can we see the price of silver come down? I mean, yeah, we can see the price of silver dip. I mean, clearly, like we've talked about in the very beginning of April, we've seen a huge drop in the price of silver. But like I've said before, it didn't take very long before it recovered and then continued on the upcharge. And I think we're going to see that happen again. We could see some sort of a pullback. How bad of a pullback on silver do I think we would see? I mean, if we see $38, I think that's definitely a buying opportunity, because if the silver gets down to $38, you should easily have an opportunity to pick up silver at $40, even with the premium. Now, are there going to be some people that are going to be gouging the price, maybe not willing to come down on their premiums? Of course. But I think there'll be opportunity. And I think if we do see that drop, it's going to be before this month comes to an end. I've made this prediction a few times, and we've seen it play out. In fact, this was one that I predicted to the T. A lot of people sat here, and they gave me a hard time. Now, I did say I thought it would happen by the end of March. It was crazy that it happened pretty much on April 1st. Now, some people say technically you have 2 days to deliver after the close of the financial quarter. So, I mean, I guess maybe that could be why it happened. It happened because a lot of people had to settle. And, hey, what better way? I mean, if I had 1 million short ounces that I've got to settle with you, I can either settle at 34 or I can beat the price down and settle at 28.70 and essentially save a bunch of money. And every dollar does matter, even to these big companies, because in their trades, they're not trading 1 ounce like we are. It's easy for you to say, oh, you're buying a silver order, but you're fighting over 50 cents or a dollar. Whoop-de-doo. These companies are trading hundreds of millions of ounces. A dollar means the difference of hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think the same thing that is giving them the power to accumulate more and more silver, physical silver, is going to be the same thing that actually skyrockets the price. Now, here's the thing. Once they acquire a huge amount of silver, do you think they care if the price skyrockets? No, because they're holding a huge portion. Some people will say JP Morgan holds the largest silver stockpile that has ever been put together in the history of the world. They just keep acquiring it. Now, I think they know something we don't know. Or, well, I shouldn't say don't know. I mean, me and you watching this channel know it. And I think there's a lot of people that just don't realize it. And when it goes up, all of a sudden, you're not going to have mainstream media dissing silver. Oh, silver's a great investment. Yeah, when it's $300-$400, they want you to buy it. And here's the thing. Despite me even liking Bitcoin, how many people remember when Bitcoin was $25,000 or even $10,000? I remember when it was 10. Oh, the only people that buy Bitcoin are your lawbreakers, are your people that are dealing street pharmaceuticals, whatever. You shouldn't be buying it. It's for criminals. It's this, that. And then all of a sudden it goes up to 100,000 and they want to tell you it's the greatest investment of all. Yeah, now that you hold your position. You look at mainstream right now, the news, they're certainly not telling you to buy silver. In fact, it only just came out because obviously gold has been a tremendously awesome investment, that they came out and said, if you're going to buy precious metals, you're best to just buy gold. Why? Because it's safe, if you're going to buy it. And then they tell you, oh, but you're better off just to buy it in ETF form. Yeah, because they don't want you getting the physical. How often do you really think they're being honest with you? They don't care about you. Jim Cramer, oh, he's a great guy. He tells everybody this. He gets paid to pitch. He's a salesman. He's a salesman that's wrong. 70% of the time. He's selling you their garbage, their junk. Yes, he's got to be right once in a while. If you're wrong all the time, I mean, it would be too obvious. But how many people really follow all of his stuff? There was one YouTuber tracked every single Jim Cramer show and tracked every single buy investment that he said to buy. Literally 70% of them went down. 30% of them went up. You know, it's ridiculous. If you were just to bet against everything he says, you would be making money big time. You know, so I think I got to get back to the, you know, is it wise to put everything on gold and silver? Obviously, in my personal opinion, 10% is just too low. A house is a very important asset, especially a primary investment. I know some people will say technically a house is not an asset. An asset is classified as something that produces you an income. A house does not produce you an income. However, in my opinion, it kind of does. And here's why. Because it saves you from having to spend money. I've said this time and time again. I might sell a 10-ounce silver bar to someone for what I paid for it. Why would I do that? I didn't make any money. But if all of a sudden the person says, I'll mow your lawn a couple times and not charge you, or I'll watch your dog for the next 2 weeks while you're out of town, or you can come eat at my restaurant, you know, a couple times for free. You know, these are all things that give you a better quality of life. You may not be making money, but money, I always say, is not the end game. The end game is to have a better quality of life. The end game is to get the items that you need. You don't need money. You need a place to stay. You need food on the table. You need clothing. Does it matter how you get to that point? You need to get from A to C. You don't have to go through the US dollar, which is B, to get there. There's a lot of different ways to get to where you're going. You know, the roadmap might say one way. Google might say one way when you Google map it, but there's other ways. And by doing that, you cut out that essentially, I don't want to say 3%. It all depends how you're buying it. Some people, they charge it and boom, they hit you a 3% fee just for putting on a credit card. You know, like, I shouldn't say credit card. I see a lot of restaurants now, they're having like this digital concession fee or something where, you know, you pull out cash and, oh, it's a little bit cheaper, hold on. And I was like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, see this little fee? Yeah, it takes off like 75 cents or whatever. And I'm like, unbelievable. They promote this digital currency and cards and all this stuff, but then eventually once they get everybody into it, they're going to want to charge fees to use it. Cash essentially kind of, I won't say keeps the power in your hand, but it kind of gives you a little bit of an edge. I'm not a big fan of having a lot of cash, but I do like precious metals. I think precious metals are going to do very well. I wouldn't want to put everything I own into them. Obviously, I'll be honest, right now, I don't have a ton of money right now. I'm trying to remodel one house. I'm trying to get moved out. It's kind of eating me on money on both fronts. I don't have a ton of extra money, and so, you know, I'm kind of taking it slow. Some people will want to put every penny in. And here's the thing. I always say it's okay to have to sell a little of your silver. There's nothing wrong with that. Silver is meant to be money. It's meant to be money. If you need money, you sell it. You definitely have to watch out for those premiums. You know, it's bumming if you buy something at a $4 premium and then you go to sell it for spot price. I actually had one person tell me today he has a little shop and he sells silver in it. And when the silver price is moving higher, he usually buys it at $1 back. Why does he do that? Because just as the price jumped, it could have a little pullback, and he don't want to be left holding the bag. He believes in it. Well, why does he sell it then if he believes in it? Well, because it's still a business. It's a business. A lot of these people that promote silver and sell silver, their intent is to make money. However, you know, they're not selling their personal collection. They're taking the money that you give them and they're instantly reinvesting it into more silver. And, people just have to understand. Now, like I said, theoretically, could it be wise to have every penny you own in gold and silver? I don't think it would be wise. It's not a guarantee it would hurt you. This is not financial advice. Each person really does have to make their own decision on what they think is going to happen and how to best play it out. No one is going to care more about your retirement, your financial well-being than you. And once you understand that, hey, you got to really put some research in it. If you have this belief, and I actually heard this from a girl one day, she goes, I don't even know what I invest in. Me and my husband just give the money to somebody and they invest it. That's what they get paid for. You think he's looking out for your best interest? Well, he gets paid to do it. That doesn't matter. I mean, if somebody says, hey, suggest this stock and I'll give you a 10% commission instead of a 5% commission, he might be tempted to promote it. When it comes to gold and silver, I don't get paid if you buy or you sell or you don't buy. I don't even suggest who you buy from. I tell you guys sometimes who I'm buying from, but lately I've been finding better deals through individuals that I have helped get into silver that are now having a hard time or that are now wanting to sell. I'm hearing more and more people that want to get into it because they didn't know about it. Why would you want to buy a piece of gold at $3,600 when you didn't want to buy it at $2,000? Well, because they didn't believe in it then. But now with everything happening, they're seeing it go up and they know it's going to keep going up. So this is all some stuff that you have to think about, and you have to understand this can be kicked down the road a little bit longer and longer and longer. Let's take a look how long we've been talking. Nice, 41 minutes. Okay. I say that because some people have said they like the longer format. Definitely the channel has been doing something different. More people are hitting the subscribe button than before. More people are watching the videos than before. I don't know if that's because before I tried to make it a point to cut the videos off at 15 minutes and not really get said what I wanted to say all the time, or you kind of try to speed through it, and sometimes people can't understand if you don't give some good analogies or you try to rush it. But I also don't know if it's that or if it's just right now the excitement behind gold and silver is just ramping up and more people are searching. Why is silver going up? What's going on? How high can it go? For the people out there, and I know a couple of them, that sold their silver at 40 and 41, don't think for a minute this is a huge pullback. We got silver down 50 cents maybe. It's showing down 29 right now. We had it up to almost 21.70, 21.50. I mean, it's down $1, but that's not the end of the world. One big move, whether that be something with the Fed meeting, whether that be something with the U.S. Strategic Stockpile Reserve draft list, that something gets approved, a lot of things can spike the price. And we'll see how it plays out. I'm a firm believer in silver. I think it's going to go a whole lot higher. I hope you do too. But if you don't, hey, I mean, some people's opinion is Bitcoin all the way, and I'm not going to say anything bad about that. Be cautious. Be cautious. Thousands of years we've never seen gold and silver be worthless. Something that's only been around 20 years, well, anything can happen. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap the video up here. I thank everybody for watching. I do hope that you took a minute and hit that subscribe button. So many people watch the videos and they just forget to hit it, or they don't hit it for whatever reason. So check out some of these other great videos. I try to do videos every Monday through Friday. I try to do short videos, 1-minute videos in the evening. Usually, though, the 1-minute videos are different topics it could be about anything, really. Today I put up an inflation short. I put up a short at a museum that I went to with some fascinating stuff. It was kind of cool because they had a bunch of sterling silver in the museum, and I was like, ooh, look at all that sterling silver. And then I did a place that I like to eat at video. Just, this is the fun me, my short videos. It could be anything from package opening to lottery ticket to stuff that I hear, words of wisdom, whatever. And yes, I do touch up on coins, obviously, with it. I used to do all coins strictly. I'll be honest, it's fun, but I like talking a little bit about myself. Eventually, I will go into showing myself. I know there's some people that are like, I tried looking at the reflection in the meat package to see if I could see what you look like. Some people find it funny. I used to be really open. If you've been following the channel for a while, you remember when I would always show myself in the shorts. I don't do that anymore. I don't show myself in the videos anymore. I was on here live every night, 7 days a week before. Where you saw me talking, and I eventually stopped that for different security reasons. I expect I may go back to that at some point. Now, there's a few different reasons for that, and we'll get into that down the road. So, but this is, like I said, it's the fun me. So I thank everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to reading all y'all's comments. I try to read everybody's comments. So thank you all for watching, and have a great one. Bye-bye.